Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 11, 2018 Board of Education meeting. We start, of course, with the Pledge of Allegiance, but I think after the Pledge of Allegiance, after we rise and do that, given the fact that this is 17 years after the day that America was attacked in 2001, I'd ask for please a moment of silence after we say the Pledge of Allegiance together as members of this fine community. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There is one item to add to the agenda. I'd ask for a motion to add to the agenda item 9.7, which is at least a preliminary report on the state SBAC and the SAT tests. We did get an email about that. At least we have some preliminary information we'd like to bring to the community regarding the performance on that. So is there a motion to add that as 9.7?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that would specifically be a preliminary report on SBAC and SAT. And item 4 on the agenda, this is always a very exciting meeting because we introduce our new faculty and staff and given the first board meeting of the academic year. And so item 4 on the agenda is to introduce those teachers, and I would ask that with the board's permission we do that at this point because I'm sure they all have lesson plans and other things they need to be working on. So Dr. Freeman, Mr. Bowden.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the newest members of Guilford Public Schools faculty to you and the greater community this evening. From our time together at our new teacher orientation, I can attest to their passion for teaching, their commitment to quality instruction, and their willingness to be the very best for their students each and every day. I will introduce each of them to you by school and their assignment that they currently hold. So if you direct your attention to the screens around you. From A.W. Cox, second grade teacher Nicole Carangelo. Spanish teacher Julie Swanson. From Calvin Leet Elementary School, music teacher Nicholas Abraham. Grade 3 teacher Catherine Gencarelli. Library media specialist Cheryl Monaco. From Melissa Jones School, literacy coach Emily Fournier. From Guilford Lakes Elementary School, library media specialist Laura Bazinas. Kindergarten teacher Amy Courtwright. Music teacher Sarah Ryan. From Baldwin Middle School, grade 5 teacher Kimberly Brosnan. Special education teacher Claire McCarthy. Reading specialist Simone Malthrop. Speech and language pathologist Lauren Trapiano. Sharing a split assignment between Baldwin and Adams Middle School, social worker Lindsay Mapes. From Adams Middle School, French teacher Anna Butinoff. Language arts teacher Devin Pryor. And at Guilford High School, English teacher Elise Cook. Science teacher Allison O'Brien. And science teacher Nicole Seeley. So members of the Board of Education, I present to you our class of 2018, 2019. And with a round of applause. Mr. Bloss?
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. We did have the opportunity to meet many of them. I know that many of you this is your first teaching assignment, first job. It's a great position. You're in a great town. We're delighted that you chose to begin your teaching career with us here in Guilford. Some of you I know came from other districts, and we're delighted that you've chosen to continue your work teaching in Guilford. We think this is a pretty special town and a pretty special school system, and we're delighted that you've become part of this group, this team. So on behalf of the entire board, welcome, and we look forward to seeing you over and over and over again. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
So also, I think, Dr. Freeman, item 9.1 on the agenda is an award that I think it would be appropriate to move up to here on the agenda.
I'd be happy to do that. So I have the privilege of bringing good news to the board and to the community. Last year, here in the Guilford Public Schools, at the urging of some parents, we formed for the first time a special education parent-teacher organization, our own local group within the SEPTO Alliance. After forming last year for the first time, the group was recognized by the Connecticut Special Education PTO Alliance and received an award. I'd like to go ahead and read the language associated with the award that the group was recognized with. Every year, the Connecticut Special Education PTO Alliance presents the Spirit of SEPTO Award to individuals and groups who actively support the advancement of students with disabilities. The founders of Guilford SEPTO are entirely deserving of this award and are recognized this evening for their hard work this past year in supporting our children. For all you do, the Connecticut SEPTO Alliance is honored to present the Spirit of SEPTO Award to the Guilford SEPTO. The children of Guilford are fortunate to have you behind them. I'd like to recognize the members of the Guilford SEPTO Board of Directors. That includes Kim Beckett, Kristen Eveland, Amy Mason-Mann, Sarah Kellogg, and Jay Carlson. I'd also like to recognize the school representatives, Kelly Cosgrove, Lauren Barbosa, Jennifer Baldwin, Jennifer Coppola, and I'd like to recognize our acting director of pupil services, Mr. Jason Scanziano, who has been intimately involved with this group. I had the opportunity of meeting with this group once or twice last year, and I agree with everything that the award recognizes. They're a group of parents who are committed and motivated to making sure that we do all we can for our students with disabilities in the community. And if I can, I'd like to ask Kim Beckett, and I see Jay there too, if Jay doesn't mind joining, if you'd come to the podium and just say a few words about the organization that you helped create.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. This is Jay Carlson, who serves on the board with me, and we are here happily and humbly receiving this award. There are a lot of people that we would thank here today. It starts with Kevin Daly, who is the chair of the Connecticut SEPTO Alliance. He worked with us for over a year, making sure that we were ready to launch, and he's been available to us if we needed his guidance. Secondly is the administration. We cannot be here tonight without Dr. Freeman and Jason Scanziano. The trust that they have placed in this organization to do what we want to do is just amazing. So we thank you so much for all that you have done. When we start on the same page, it's the children, it's the students who are going to reap the benefit. Third, we want to thank everyone, all the names that you just mentioned, who are on our leadership team. Each of these people come to the table with their talent, their knowledge, their intelligence, their creativity. And somebody once said to us, you guys really look like you get along. And it's the truth. We do. We all mesh very well together. And that's not because we're all of the same personality. We all have different backgrounds. The only thing we share in common is that our children have all either been through the special education program or are currently in the program. And then lastly, I'd like to thank the membership who continue to come to our meetings because it really is all about them. One parent wrote to us after one workshop and said, I have never felt so empowered, so confident, so knowledgeable to get through my PPT, to feel like I am truly an equal member at that table, and I was able to contribute and help my son much more so than I ever was. So thank you, everyone here in Guilford Public Schools who have been so instrumental in helping us launch our very successful year last year, and now we're getting ready to go into a second year. We have a web page that's going to be available as of Monday. guilfordsepto.org. And we also have a Facebook page. So dinosaurs like me can't do things like that, but there are younger parents who are coming with their talents to really explore and get the message out about this great organization. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so if we can go back to the agenda, item 3.1 is action on the August 13, 2018 minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any changes, corrections?
Yes, I gave a few changes to the clerk already.
Okay, probably should just say what they are, if they're substantive, if they're typos, maybe not.
No, they're just clarification and
Okay.
typo.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. August 27, 2018 special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, changes, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 4, we've done. Item 5 on the agenda is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Anybody at this point? Okay. Mr. Kazin reviewed our expenditures for the month.
Yes, and we discussed the particulars during the Operations Committee, so let me make this in the form of a motion to accept the expenditures for the month of August in the amount of $4,615,877.82, and the expenditures on the warrant in the amount of $2,585,214.11.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? I know we did talk about this in substantial detail in the earlier meeting. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda is communications. I know, and we're going to talk about the school start specifically. I think we've all received some number of emails relating to buses specifically. Although I did get in communication thanking the district for some of your communications out to parents explaining what is happening. I think, we've tried to be as open as we can be about what's happening. Any other communications?
We got one today thanking the board administration for the added teacher at
Yes.
Calvin Lee.
That's correct.
For the
That's true.
fourth grade.
And you should probably just note, this might be a good place to note, that we also added a kindergarten teacher.
Correct. So as part of the budget process last year, the board and then ultimately the town approved the addition of a fourth grade teaching position at Calvin Lee to reduce a bubble in class size there. And while early in the summer it looked like we were only going to be staffing for 11 kindergarten classrooms, the kindergarten enrollment at Lakes specifically was outstripping our projections, and so we have added a fourth kindergarten section at Lakes. We were able to hire and fill that position. You met the new teacher in the presentation. Mrs. Ryan and I had an opportunity to visit her classroom today, and so instead of kindergarten classes that would have been at 22 or 23 at Lakes, you have kindergarten classrooms that are approximately 15 or 16. And it maintains an elementary class size average of about 18 students across the district.
Okay. Any other communications? Okay. Then I think we don't have student representatives.
She'll be
yet.
with us next month.
Okay. And so item 9 on the agenda is the superintendent's report. We've already done 9.1.
The number of items here, I'll try to move relatively quickly through some of them. I'll start by simply saying that the opening of school, and particularly our convocation activities, went very well. I know that a number of board members were able to join us at either the certified or non-certified convocations that we held in those first 3 opening days. I do want to point out, remind the board members who were there, but make sure that the community is aware. Every convocation, we attempt to set a tone for the school year. And so we begin by recognizing the new members who are joining our teaching community. We recognize years of service for veterans who reach milestones like 20, 30, and this year we had 2 people who have served over 40 years in the school system who were recognized. But then we dive into a conversation around the work of the year and work very much to set a tone. This year, we addressed the ideas of stress and anxiety, and how do we
embrace our instructional mission, and design for classrooms that help to generate productive struggle. We want our students engaged in the work, wrestling with the work, and caring about the work to a degree that there's a healthy level of stress, and you learn when you are in those situations. And how do we design those situations instructionally? Because in fact, it is in those learning situations where you can safely make a mistake and learn from that mistake that you learn coping skills and learn tolerance for stress. At the same time, how do we monitor our students and build a safety net? Because every student recognizes that stress differently. So how do you know your students well, monitor your students, and adjust for the students so that they're in that productive struggle, but not crossing a line where they're experiencing unproductive stress? That was the focus of Convocation. We shared some information that Dr. Tom Allen shared with us about designing for that productive struggle. And really exciting, we then broke up, and we had teachers from across the school district, from across our 7 schools, travel out to 20 different classrooms here in this high school and spend 45 minutes working with colleagues from different buildings, different levels. We had high school chemistry teachers working with kindergarten teachers and talking about how we design those classrooms, where we're focusing on productive struggle, but monitoring and supporting our students and helping it not ever cross the line and becoming unproductive stress. We came back and shared out some of the big aha moments that staff members had, and we sort of wrapped up Convocation with 2 this year, storybooks from Dr. Keene, 2 children's books, one of which talks about our community and talks about how our community is caring enough and large enough to encompass everybody. And it was the story of a big red umbrella, and the umbrella just got bigger. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and was large enough to protect everybody from the elements. And we talked about the fact that the umbrella doesn't shield our students from stress. It's not protecting them. If you wanted to avoid the elements, you'd stay in your house. The umbrella is the ability to go out into those elements and cope. And we need to help our students learn those coping skills so that they can successfully navigate stress in the world. The second storybook that we read was, in fact, an adaptation of a Tolstoy story, and it was about a young boy trying to answer important questions. What is the most important moment? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? And the story ends noting that the most important person is the person you're with right now. The most important moment is the moment you are in right now. And the most important thing to do is to do what is right now. And part of Convocation, we invited a 2nd grade teacher from Cox, Maya Schofield, to come to the front of the room. And with 400 of her certified colleagues in the room, she ran us through a mindfulness activity. And before we left to spend 45 minutes talking about our classrooms and sharing the practices that I've used over time that might be successful, but might not be so successful. And that's a stressful thing to ask colleagues to do. Before we left to do that activity, Maya did a very simple breathing activity that took about 2 minutes and reminded everybody that we are right here, right now, and take 3 deep breaths, think about what you're about to go off and do, let everything else go away, because for the next 40 minutes you're going to be working with your colleagues right here and right now. And that's a strategy that teachers can use in the classroom before students jump into a group activity or a big project. And every teacher left with what I hope you will see around the schools and around the community, a visual cue. So every teacher left that day with a magnet that has a large red umbrella and the words right here, right now, so that they can place it on their whiteboards or they can put it on their filing cabinet. And for every one of us professionally, we can remember that it's our job to design those classrooms that are both academically challenging and socially and emotionally supportive. And we are a big enough and a professional enough community to do that, and to remember that the most important people are the ones in that classroom with us right now. The most important moment is that experience that's happening right now. And the most important thing to do is what is right for those students in this moment. We did that twice. We did it on Monday with certified staff. We repeated that activity on Wednesday with our non-certified staff from around the district. I'm seeing red umbrellas on on whiteboards and on filing cabinets and on cars driving around town, and it makes me feel great. So as you see those red umbrellas, know that that is the visual cue to say that we are a community that, yes, cares about academic excellence, but also cares equally about creating that environment that is going to be social. There you go, Mr. Sands. So as you see those around town, I hope you take a moment to feel as good as I do when I see those. It was a very good opening professionally with our 3 days of professional development that then slid into an opening in the schools that was as positive in the classroom level. So we're very excited about that.
Great.
Preliminary enrollment reports, I'll do even more briefly. You know that next month I will have the official October reports for you. What I can say is at this moment across the district we are down 58 students over our enrollment from last year. We had in fact projected to be down 75 students during the budget cycle, and as always we did not decline as much as we anticipated we would decline. At the elementary level, across 4 buildings, we've in fact seen an increase of 5 students across the district. Baldwin Middle School has a decrease of about 35 over last year. Adams has an increase of 5, and the high school has a decrease of 33 students. Those numbers all net out to be the decrease of 58 students district-wide that I mentioned. We are still seeing some enrollments, some transfers, and so again, I'll have official numbers for you after the October 1 snapshot at your next meeting. And again, I'll reiterate that with the addition of the 3rd grade classroom at Leet and the kindergarten classroom at Lakes, we have elementary class sizes that are averaging 18 K through 4 across the district. And I'll have that classroom breakdown for you completely at your next meeting.
Good.
I do want to spend some time updating on the bus routes, and that's going to take a little bit more time. The board is aware that representatives from Specialty Transportation joined you at your Operations Committee meeting earlier this evening. I want to remind the community that as we opened this year, we opened with a number of variables around transportation that we have not had in a long time. So we know that we intentionally changed the bell schedules last year after an extended conversation in the community about start time and sleep patterns. We pushed the high school schedule by 15 minutes. We pushed the middle school schedules by 10 minutes, and we pushed the elementary schedules by 5 minutes. What that did is it compacted what was an already challenging bus route. I'll also note that in addition, we were looking to drop students at the high school later, closer to the start of the school day. Last year, we were dropping some students at the high school 35 minutes before the first bell rang. We were looking to shorten that to 25 or 20 minutes. So in addition to embracing that more challenging set of conditions, we then, for the first time in 10 years, changed bus companies last year. So STA, that had been the bus provider for the last decade, was not the preferred bidder. They did not win the contract. So STA and that 10-year working relationship moved out, and we brought in Specialty. That included a new scheduling software. It included new leadership and management, and it included a number of new drivers who were joining us. So as we embraced that more challenging schedule, we also were beginning a new relationship and getting to know each other, and we had drivers who, while they had driven the routes with empty buses, were driving routes for the first time with real live students on their buses. The first few days of school were challenging. We had some bus drop-offs that were more than an hour late in the afternoon coming home from the elementary schools. We had some pickups in the AM that were frustrating for parents and for the schools. I am happy to report that today our buses cleared the roads at 4:35. That is significant improvement over the first few days of school and very nearly where we want to be. We're not where we want to be yet. We still need to develop some consistency on some routes where the buses are simply unpredictable, and there are some routes that remain problematic. So as we continue to move forward, we couldn't make changes right out of the gate after the first day or two because we need to let some of the routes shake themselves out. we needed time for the schools to stabilize their dismissal procedures. It shouldn't be surprising that in the first few days of school, students don't necessarily know what bus they're riding home. They don't necessarily know where to find that bus as they exit the school, and they don't necessarily load quickly. And so we need some time for school staff and students to shake out things like those dismissal procedures. After the conversations we've had over the last several years, I know that everybody is aware that not all students in Guilford ride the school bus. Some drive to school, some are driven to school. But we program a stop for every single child in the school district, as we are required to by statute. Over the first few days of school, we get a sense of what the actual ridership is proposed, as opposed to the planned ridership. So that's the other component. And quite frankly, we had some drivers who were learning routes and needed to become confident and comfortable with the routes that they were driving. As those conditions have now settled, I want to remind the board and apprise the community that we are taking steps to continue to correct the unacceptable times that exist for some parents and students. We have added additional clerical support into Mr. Dorwin's office so that he can get through the communications that he's receiving and respond to them more quickly and efficiently. And most importantly, we've brought on extra support from specialty, who this week are beginning to look very carefully at the driver experiences and at those problematic routes. And we will be scheduling some route changes to try to address those problem hotspots that we know still exist. I'll reiterate the communication that I sent out Friday. One, we really appreciate the communications that are coming in. If we don't hear from the community, we don't know where the hotspots exist and how to correct them. And two, we really want to appreciate everybody's patience. We know how frustrating it is when you're expecting the bus and it comes early or it comes late. We know that we haven't had all students home in a timely manner in these first 7 days. We are committed to continuing to work on this until we get it right, up to and including adding more buses if that's what it takes to get this right. We have a plan with Specialty. Specialty came tonight and met with the board pretty extensively during your operations meeting that happened earlier this evening. We're going to continue to work with them every day, and we will begin to get notification of those structurally changed routes out as soon as we have that information. I want to encourage parents to continue, if you could, to be patient for a bit longer, but more importantly, to continue to get those communications to us, because it's in hearing from you that we're able to assess the situation and make the corrections that we need to make.
Questions, comments? I notice we have two of the representatives from the company here, the Specialty here, and thank you for meeting with us earlier. We did talk for about an hour, really, about all of these issues. And I understand there's a meeting with Mr. Bowden and some others from the district and your company on Thursday to talk about some specific routes, and that's great. You know, if there are things that the district needs to do differently, we'll do it. If there are things that the company needs to do differently to meet what we've said to the community we're going to be able to do, then we should do it. And we'll do what we can do reasonably to help you, and you know, similarly, we hope that you'll continue to be cooperative. We understand. I guess we should put a couple of things. I think that the shift over from the old company to the new company was significantly more complicated than perhaps it was anticipated, in that the former company, I think it's fair to say, was not very cooperative, and I don't expect you to nod your head, but I will. The former company,
I think scorched earth.
well, it was the old company was not cooperative in the transfer, the handover.
The transition was not as smooth as we would have hoped, and Mr. Dorwin put in yeoman's hours over the summer trying to rebuild in a new software suite what we didn't have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that we had to input every piece of data on every single route, and it had to start from scratch, and it's too bad.
Yeah.
And you know, frankly, that's something that I think is going to be considered by somebody someday, and whether to award a contract to another company, but that's not today's problem. We put the data into the software, into the database, and I think that our current company has really done a very good job in trying to build, along with Mr. Dorwin, build these routes with absolutely no institutional knowledge, which is a shame. I understand why the old company did it. I don't like it, but that's where we are.
And the good news is that the first year is behind us, and it's going to get better from here. And so, again, I can't thank enough the folks from Specialty and Mr. Dorwin and Mr. Bowden, who have been putting in significant time achieving the improvements that we've seen in these first 7 days and planning on getting it to where we know it needs to be.
One thing I'd like to just mention, all of the buses under this new contract, and part of the contract provision, they are all brand new. In the old STA buses, there were some, I know that there were some that were long in the tooth, whatever the metaphor is for a bus, but they were ragged. There were some that were pretty ragged. These are all brand new buses. But they also have something I think people really ought to understand. They have video cameras on the insides of the buses. And so if there is a complaint of misconduct against your child on a bus, call the principal and say, I'd like to have somebody from the district check the video, and we'll find out what happened. That's within the set of expectations that we have for these buses and the people that work for the company. So, you know, I've had a couple of emails inquiring about asserting that there were some unsafe conditions on the buses. Those have been examined against the video camera recordings of these specific routes, and nothing was observed on these routes on these days that was in fact dangerous. So
we are reminding all drivers, however, of all the safety expectations, and we will expect all of our students to adhere to all those safety expectations for every single ride.
Yeah, and there's some I know that the kids are like, you know, people that ride Metro North. They want to put the backpacks on the seat next to them, and so there's not a seat right away. And well, the kids need to understand that you got to make room to let everybody else sit down. And the drivers need to understand, well, you can't start moving until everybody is sitting down, but that means somebody's going to have to put a backpack under the seat in front of them, or
That's right.
in any event. So we understand. We're paying attention. We think the bus company is paying attention as well.
And it's going to continue to improve.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Okay.
So for the next piece, I would like to hand this over to Dr. Keene, who's going to give you a bit of an update on the summer programming that took place, or some of the summer programming that took place these past months.
So we have a brief video tonight of our summer programs. We had 2 summer programs. One was a literacy program that any first grader who needed additional literacy support was invited to participate. We had the program at Lakes, but it did encompass children from Leet, Cox, and Jones as well for grade 1 students. We also had another summer STEM program for students going into 3rd and 4th grade, and that was just for Guilford Lakes students. Both of these were grant-funded programs. We tried the STEM program a couple of years ago, first starting at Baldwin, then moving to Lakes, and then we had enough money allocated to Lakes to do it again this summer. So I do have Jen DeWallace. She was one of our program coordinators. She was the program coordinator for our STEM program. Both programs were about 3 weeks this summer for 3 hours a day for children. I'll show you, you'll get a sense, because we just started the implementation of our new science curriculum. We focused on science as a topic for both programs, our literacy program and our mathematics program. So here's our summer programs.
spoon, when it hits something, the string on it, the vibrating goes through the string into the cup, and you could hear the noise. What I'm doing is I direct, so I paint this diagonal and then I get the light at the corner of the mirror. Then, like the left or the right corner of this side of the corner. And then it reflects it into the box, and I can see the purple circle, green, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math mixed together.
So how do STEM experiences prepare students for the challenges they'll face in school and life?
It helps them to persevere and to know that there's not just one solution or one answer. And when they're frustrated, it doesn't mean that they stop thinking. It allows them to keep trying, because that's part of the program. It's part of the philosophy that we keep improving, we keep trying, we keep thinking.
The engineering design process. Ask, imagine, plan, create, improve. When to improve, we do the whole thing over again. It's seriously like melting the ground.
So that was it. We do this every year, or we try to do this every year. This is one way we can test some of the units that we want to implement for all children. So as a result of our summer program this year, we are implementing the sound and light unit for all first graders in Guilford, because these first graders are now in second grade. And we will be implementing the cleaning up the oil spill and the evaluating the landscape units, as well as one that we did last summer. So we are going to use the engineering units so that teachers have an engineering unit to build from for our science. So as you can see, Title I expects parents to be involved, and we try to involve our parents a lot in written feedback as well as in visits to see what their child has learned. So that was the month of July.
Terrific. Well, it looks very successful.
Yeah.
We should say that when you say Title I, this is a federally funded program.
Correct.
So this is a unique, one of the only sources of federal funds that we get.
Correct.
Is the Title I grant. But
It's part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, federal government, and we design what we want the program to look like every year when we get our allocation, and we don't know from year to year what we're going to be getting.
Did you have a question?
Dr. King just answered it, which was whether the part of the money was a curriculum that you were provided or whether it was something you created yourself. So,
Well, basically, we research the resources.
Right.
These, the engineering units come from Boston Science Museum.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Engineering is Elementary. But we researched a lot of resources before we landed on that one. And that was part of the grant to purchase these units.
Right.
And then the sound and light was from FOSS, which is the full option science system. And we bought the units for the summer program. Now, the district will be buying them for the rest of the students.
but my point is that the money doesn't come with an established curriculum.
No.
You're able,
No,
part of what
they-
you're able to do
yeah.
is really
Yes.
explore curriculums you would like to try out.
Well, and in fact, that's something about which we're very proud. The grants are essentially provided to provide summer programming for a small number of students.
Right.
We do that and try to make every effort to make sure that we're also learning in ways that will benefit all of our students. So we're not just creating busy work for a small group of students. We're looking at our teaching practice, we're looking at new resources, we're looking at new curricular rollout, and finding ways that we're learning from that summer experience and embedding the program for all students and not just providing that program for a small number of students that the grant provides for.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
I have another brief item. So at this meeting every year, we want to give you a hiring and vacancy report. You will later in your agenda be recognizing 4 late resignations that came in at the end of the school year. Mrs. Ginny Brown and at the district level, Tucker Regan at Baldwin, Kristen Skelly at Baldwin, and Stacy Ewings, one of our literacy coaches, have all had opportunities come their way that they simply could not walk away from. All 4 of them are going to be missed in our district. They generated 4 vacancies, one of which has already been filled. We have already been able to fill the coaching vacancy. We have, the board is aware, Jason Scanziano, who has been named acting director, filling the director of special services role at this time. We currently still have 2 teaching vacancies in the role of social worker at Baldwin Middle School and in a 5th grade science position at Baldwin Middle School. Both of those are being filled temporarily, and Mr. Hamill is working on filling both of those positions permanently as we move forward. And members of the board and I are working on permanently filling the Director of Special Services position as well. Other than that, we are fully hired at this time. We're fully staffed at this time in all the certified areas.
Great.
The last piece that we have, and Mr. Bloss, thank you for adding it, is we want to give you a very brief update on the Smarter Balanced and SAT results that have come in. We are scheduling a deeper conversation later this month at a workshop meeting to go into greater detail, but we did want to give you the simplest and highest level overview of these scores as they became available to us late last week.
So many of you may have seen the results in the newspaper over the weekend. They were released last week by the Connecticut State Department of Education. So basically tonight, I'm doing something that I really don't enjoy doing that much, and that is showing you some comparative results. But I know that people are interested in how did we do compared to other districts, similar districts, or the entire state. So I do have an apple and an orange here, just for some limitations. With this data, like I say, it's the highest level data that we have. It's going to be just percent of students who met achievement goals in both English language arts and mathematics. However, some of the districts you're going to see are not K-12 districts. They may be K-6 districts or K-8 districts. You also may see some districts that have different levels of participation rates. Some may have had 90% participation. Some may have had 95. Some may have had 99 or 100% participation. So there are a lot of limitations to this data. But it does give you a sense of what kind of relative performance that Guilford did on our state summative assessments. We do not teach to this test. We feel like if we're doing good instruction and we pay attention to the standards, that the assessments will take care of themselves.
Just assume a grain of salt.
So I know it's hard to see all of them, but I'll be glad to forward this to you as well. This is the top 20 districts in the state of the percent of students meeting or exceeding the goal for the past 3 years. So you see the first column of numbers will be for the 15-16 school year. The second column of numbers is the 16-17 school year. And the third column is the 17-18 school year. In mathematics, and this is for the state.
We'll get it.
This is the top 20 in the state. Guilford is number 5 in the state. For English language arts, they are 8th in the state.
So let's just pause here for a minute. And I know you hate this, and we with the usual caveats that sometimes the differences between one district and another district might be 1 or 2 kids, right?
Correct.
Meeting goal.
Yep.
And so we don't want to either overemphasize this or underemphasize this. On the other hand, it's maybe helpful to just note both the improvement in math over the last 3 years.
Right.
I'm sure that's valid under any set of circumstances
Correct.
in terms of comparisons. But the districts ahead of us are New Canaan, Westport, Darien, Region 18, which is, I think, Lime Old Lyme.
That's Lime Old Lyme, correct.
Right. And we're ahead of Reading, Trumbull, Easton, Amity, Avon, Weston, Glastonbury, and so forth. So that's some good company. And that it's in math, for again, the old timers, that wasn't always that way. I remember I did a talk, I think, around 2005, where we were 40th in the state in 8th grade math. So this is tremendous progress. Got to be very, very pleased with the comparables.
Yes. You may see this one a little bit more pleasing. This is our district reference group comparison. These are like
the DIRG
districts.
group.
This is a DIRG,
This is
DIRG
DIRG
B.
B.
And for English language arts, we are 3rd.
That's Amity. It's Amity. Is that
Correct.
the K-12 Amity, or is that the high school?
The Amity district is a 6 through 12 district
Okay.
only. The elementaries report back to their individual towns.
So you'll see Orange and
Oh, right.
Woodbridge
Okay.
Yep.
further down. So that's another limitation of this data. It could just be 2 grades testing.
Right, you're only looking at 6th through 8th graders in the Region 5
3.
district. 3 grades tested compared to us. We're testing all the grades. 3 through 8.
And here's the math.
Math, we're first in the,
First in Missouri.
among comparable towns.
Yes.
It's outstanding.
So again, while we know there are limitations, we are very pleased with the data. And again, I'll note what Dr. Keene said. We do not teach to this test. We believe that if we instruct in the right
So
way.
can we just
the
talk
test
about that? You can't teach to the test.
cannot teach
Not to this one.
I mean, it's always puzzling when people say that because it's not like they give you the test ahead of time.
No, no.
Right? And so there are subject areas, and if you teach the subjects that are in the curriculum and our curriculum that we adopt locally.
Connecticut has identified the grade level standards. We make sure that our locally created curricula address those identified grade level standards, and the makers of this test, they design a test that they believe assesses for those same grade level standards. But
As many as they can.
Right.
I mean, they can't even get to all the standards.
Well, look, this is a sign of great instruction. Obviously, it's a sign of great instructional leadership within the administration, great instruction among the teachers, and really everybody involved. So I know you're going to dig into this a little bit more, and we're probably going to get a little
we're going to have
more.
a much deeper conversation later this month at your workshop meeting.
Okay, great.
And parents will get individual reports for their children. They're going to be mailed on September the 18th, so that's next week. Schools just received them, and now they're, getting them prepared for mailing. I also wanted to close with the SAT report. The SAT is a very different report. It is the SAT, and it is designed not specifically for Connecticut standards, but, and it is,
It's very much the SAT you
it's
remember.
the
Number 2
SAT that
pencils.
you know and love. It is timed.
No, anyway.
It is timed. It is done in one sitting. It is very restricted as to the standardized performance. But when we look at our DIRG, we are 7th in ERW, which means evidence-based reading and writing, and 11th, right in the middle, in mathematics. So,
And how does our participation rate compare to some of the other towns?
well, I'll have to get all of that information. We have very, very high participation rate. We were like 99%.
Most of the districts tends to have higher participation rates in the SAT than they may necessarily have in the SBAC. We pride ourselves on having very high participation rates in both. And so when we look at our data, just our data, for instance, when you noted the 3 years, we can look at 3 years of results and feel confident because of the high number of our participation rate. But SAT, because it's the SAT, tends to have higher participation rates in some communities over the SBAC.
How would you reconcile the fact that the SAT, which is in many ways a aptitude test, as opposed to a knowledge test?
Well, the
And-
SAT has changed over the years, and now it's an achievement test. It has changed from more of a college readiness test to an achievement test. It does measure things very differently. It's very much multiple choice, problems out of context. So it doesn't measure exactly the way we teach, nor the way we want to teach. And so, just like I would say for any assessment, we should never rely totally on one assessment. We would look at this and say, should we look at other ways? And if a lot of different pieces of data are telling us the same thing, then we know that we can trust the data a little bit more. But, this particular, I'm not making excuses at all, because we have some students who did very, very well on this. But I'm not saying, we can't use this kind of information to inform our instructional practices as much as we can with the smarter balance, because we have so many more tools with that. We have a digital library, We have an interim assessment structure. We have training tests and practice tests. With the SAT, those pieces, yes, there are training tests and there are books published, but it's really not doing the kinds of things that we want to see in classrooms. We want kids to be actively involved. We want them to be engaged in doing those kinds of things that you saw. We want them to be writing. That does not include the evidence-based reading and writing is not the written essay.
The SAT continues to be a test that has to be given on a specific day at a specific time. When the proctor says, put your pencil down, you're done, you can't go back and look at your work. And this particular year was given on a day where we had a snow delay. Many districts closed on that day. And so the SBAC, we have a window where we can give the assessment. It's given in classrooms where students are comfortable. They can log in and then come back and continue working at a later time. It's just a very different assessment. And when we say this is apples and oranges, and when we say there are limitations to both of those reports, I want to be clear.
Yes.
We're not just saying there's limitations to the SAT. There's limitations to what you saw and those comparables for SBAC as well. Whether the results are favorable for us or not as great as we'd like to see, we take all of this with a grain of salt, and there's a lot of other information that we need to look at. And again, we'll have a lot more conversation about this at your workshop meeting.
Well, I think, though, that at the workshop meeting, it would be helpful for us to understand the difference between the Smarter Balance test, where we did very well relative to the DIRG, and the SAT, I'm looking at the math portion, where we did less well. I'm having a little hard
They're two
time
totally different measures, right? And so,
I
to a
understand
degree, that's like the doctor talking to you about your cholesterol and your blood pressure. They don't necessarily travel together. Those are two completely different measures. We need to be careful about comparing one to the other. But we can talk more deeply about both, and we can certainly talk about the differences.
At the workshop, I'd like to understand that better.
Great.
And that concludes our report this evening.
Okay. Board agenda, item 10.1 is to act on certain personnel items. There is actually a resignation for the purpose of retirement effective August 30 of 2019, and that is Dr. Ann Keene. After 20 years of service in the district and 20 years of outstanding service, you're announcing your retirement at the beginning of the school year to take effect at the end of the school year.
Correct.
Well, I suppose we have to.
With regret.
I'd make a motion to reject.
To reject.
So is there a motion that we accept that resignation for the purpose of retirement with gratitude? Motion?
Nobody wants to.
Oh, come on.
So moved.
It's like, the 13th Amendment says we can't do slavery, so the motion's been made, I take it, and seconded? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Reluctantly.
Well, we will continue to work, obviously, very closely over the next year, so you're not done yet. Then there are four, as Dr. Freeman said, there are four resignations. Virginia Brown as Director of Pupil Services, Stacy Ewings, a literacy coach at Cox, Tucker Regan, a social worker at Baldwin, and Kristen Skelly, grade 5 at Baldwin. Is there a motion to ratify those resignations?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then there's appointment of 5 teachers, Catherine Gencarelli at Leet, Emily Fournier at Jones, Amy Courtwright at Lakes, Laura Bazinas at Lakes, and Elise Cook at the high school. Is there a motion to ratify those appointments?
So moved.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. 10.2 is to act or to receive a textbook recommendation for IB French. Finally, something I can look at and have some idea what it means. Is there any? Do you want to say anything about this, Dr. Keene?
Just that I inadvertently forgot to bring the book, but I will have it on display and I will bring it next month. This is receive only. This is a new resource. It is aligned to the IB philosophy. It includes areas of the theory of knowledge and the extended essay within the book. It is
got a more global outlook, and then we'll have it available for you at Lathrop House.
And is there any urgency to this? Is this something that you're looking for this academic year? Or?
Yes, we are going to use it for this academic year. We feel like that it is, we have resources that we are using now, but in order to really understand the IB, the global issues, and the way that IB is expecting languages to be taught, that this would be very supportive. There is also an online component for the students as well as a book. And this is not a big class. We're only talking about 15 students.
Should we just act on this tonight? Is there any reason?
Do you need to use this? School started. Don't you want to use a resource?
Well, we're doing it. We didn't use a separate resource from French. We just added curriculum, but we certainly can, approve it tonight if you wish.
I don't know if you want to take it in two motions, one to waive the standard process and the 1 month viewing period, and then a second one to approve the book this evening. And we
I
certainly appreciate
don't want to
that.
get too far ahead of my. Does everybody agree with that? This isn't. It's only 15 books, and if school
We
has
certainly
started, that's
appreciate
true.
it.
That would be
school has
awesome.
started. I think they need it. I agree.
All right, so is that a motion, Mr. Sanson, to waive our
Yes,
ordinary process?
absolutely.
Second, all in favor of waiving the two-step process?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then is there a motion to approve the purchase of the IB French textbook?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It just makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's great. We
Yeah.
appreciate that very much.
Okay. 10.3 is to act on a custodial supply bid. That's specifically, there are 85 items used by the custodial staff that went out on a blanket bid. There were 12 vendors that submitted bids, and there were, 7 vendors that were low bidders. And what is the motion that you need, Ms. Trudeau? Is it just to ratify, and I know we talked about it at the operations meeting, is it to just ratify the low bids for each of those custodial items? Yes. Okay. Is there a motion to ratify the low bids for
So
each
moved.
of the custodial items?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. 10.4 is to receive for possible action list of district priorities. What do you want to do with this?
If I could, I'd just like to overview it and then ask for the board's pleasure. So I have touched on this a little bit earlier during my report. You have in your materials a copy. You will recognize that the 3 priorities are very similar to the 3 priorities that we have had for the last 8 or 9 years now. And we've talked about these each year, and we have, they've evolved. They have changed slightly over time, but they have always been one priority that speaks to the rigorous classroom environment that we strive to create. A second priority that speaks to the professional environment and the supports around teaching and learning that we work to put in place, because we know we can't reach that classroom environment if we don't have that professional environment. And finally, we've always had a third sort of a foundation where we talk about the overall climate and environment of the school system. What we are proposing this year is that while we continue to have those 3 areas of focus, the classroom, the professional environment, and the overall climate and culture, we would like to turn those on their head this year. And rather than thinking of the social and emotional component as the foundation on which we build, we would rather want to think of it this year as the fountainhead from which everything else springs. And so while the language remains very much the same, the priorities this year begin with our schools will be physically and emotionally safe, healthy, and caring places for learning, built upon supportive relationships and positive decision-making. If we establish that as the overall climate and culture first, then we move to the second priority, in which continues to say, teaching and learning in these schools will be supported by instructionally focused leadership, subject area coaches and specialists, professional learning communities, and instructional resources. And finally, if we move through those first 2 priorities, we will then be able to provide the learning environment that we aim to provide. And that is an environment in which all students will engage in academically rigorous tasks in every class. Instruction will be aligned to content area standards, integrated with the principles of learning, and measured by the ongoing collection of evidence of learning and observations of instruction. So while we continue to focus in the same areas, there is a slightly different priority that we believe presenting them in this order creates. And you will see the red umbrella on this document, and you will see beneath a then series of annual initiatives, and you will note that the initiatives start by promoting classroom environments, task designs, and instructional strategies that foster social and emotional health and wellness, followed by continuing to strengthen those professional learning communities where teachers become the engines of their own professional development and support each other, followed by continuing to deepen our mastery of what we know are 3 highly effective instructional strategies, a focus then on STEM instruction through content-focused professional development in these specific disciplines, and the board remembers that we're launching the new science curriculum keyed to the next generation science standards this year, followed by employing effective and balanced assessments to monitor student learning and inform instruction. The specific focus there is that we're talking about assessment for learning, not measures of learning. We're not focusing this year on measuring what our kids know. We're focusing on how assessments inform what we do as instructors and how it guides what happens next for students. And finally, enhancing a school climate to be globally and culturally aware and accepting. So we worked on these priorities and goals as a leadership team during our summer retreat. We touched on them at convocation, and these have in fact been shared with principals who are sharing them with their staffs as a draft only, but they're here in front of the board for your consideration, your discussion, or your approval, whatever the board's pleasure is.
So given that I think that we're just seeing these for the first time in this form tonight, maybe what we should do is just carry them forward at a workshop meeting?
It would work nicely to have this again as a follow-up item where we can have some discussion at the workshop and take action if the board feels ready.
Does that make sense? Do people feel that's okay? Okay. All right, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
All right, any comments or questions now, or just carry it over? Okay. Then, Dr. Balistrasi, no, I'm sorry, yes, we're on to Dr. Balistrasi and receive items only on some policy changes.
Right. So
Social media.
The policy committee is bringing to the board 4 items for receive only tonight, asking you to consider these, and then we will ask to act on them at our next meeting. The first is personnel. It's a new policy, social media, and it provides guidance to Board of Ed school employees around careful and appropriate use of social media. So again, this is a new policy that we would like the board to review, and then we will act on it next month. This and any of the 4, obviously, please feel free. I mean, if people have questions now, certainly, and then also feel free to contact myself or Mr. Bowden or Gary, who's the co-chair, with questions or other considerations. The second is also a new policy, a student policy. It is a very comprehensive approach to homeless students and the way that we as a school district can assist, receive, and provide services to homeless students in the district. Again, it is quite long, and that is because it is really quite comprehensive. So this includes both a policy and a regulation. All right. The third and fourth are revisions to policy 4112 and regulation 4112. These are personnel, and this is the non-discrimination policy. I will say that you will find in your folders in front of you the personnel policy, which was updated. So Terry sent us all the materials, and I noted in reviewing them a couple of errors in terms of the policy committee's edits to this. So if you open your folder, you will see, and we'll make sure that we can identify that. I think maybe what we can do is ask Terry to email as well the updated, so you make sure you have the one that you need. But the It's a one-page policy on non-discrimination, and basically what we're doing with this policy is cross-referencing to our sexual harassment policy. We need to kind of make sure that the non-discrimination policy either identifies or references sexual harassment. So that's what you're going to see in the policy. And then lastly, the regulation in the same manner. And again, you will find in your folder here that we delivered to us tonight an updated form to reflect the correct edits, which basically, again, makes sure that the form itself incorporates harassment as well as discrimination. We, again, have a harassment policy and regulation. The policy committee's decision was not to try to incorporate them into one, but make sure that they cross-reference each other. So these are receive-onlys. I certainly will welcome any questions that you have now. But also feel free to contact us before the next meeting if, as you review these, questions arise.
Okay, questions? It would seem to me like maybe a good idea to send the social media policy to the heads of the various unions, just so nobody, if any comments that they would have.
That's a great idea.
Okay. Any questions, comments on any of that?
And then the policy committee will be meeting at the end of this month, well, in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we'll keep things coming at you.
Okay. Mr. Sands or Ms. Cullen, any operations committee updates you want to
Yes.
provide?
We had a lengthy operations committee meeting. We reviewed the summer construction program, which was on the whole very successful. And I would say that the staff is to be commended for getting that much work done and the schools ready to go when we opened up. We continue to have some issues with air conditioning at several of the schools. This extreme heat we've had has really taxed some of the older facilities, and we are in the process of upgrading our heating and air conditioning at several of the schools, but we haven't finished that process. We need another summer to do that, but we are working hard on trying to correct the problems that we have this year. We spent almost an hour meeting with the representatives from Specialty, our new bus company. That was very helpful for us to understand the interplay of several of the issues that are going on here. I think the summary that we've heard tonight is correct. Significant progress has been made, but there's still more to do. I would say that we're just going to have to work our way through some of these things. It might have been a little easier if the former bus company had been more cooperative on the handover, but everybody chooses to accept the fact that they lost a bid in different ways, and that's what these people chose to do. And then finally, we were alerted to the fact that although it's too early to be definitive on the magnitude, it would appear that the tuition expenses for outplacements this year is going to be higher than what we had in the budget. We don't have good detail on that yet, but we hope in the next month to get a better handle on it. But we did get a heads up that that account, which has been very hard to estimate in the past, is once again proving somewhat troublesome. But we shall see how that develops. And that sort of summarizes a long report.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Curriculum instruction?
We meet in October.
Okay. Town committees?
No meeting of the Land Acquisition Committee this month.
All right. And pension committee, anything going on with pension committee that we should know about, or?
No. The pension committee has a request for proposals out for a new advisor, and I think it'll be another month or two until we get an idea of what's going on there.
Okay. And then there is a sign-up sheet for the Learn Board of Directors meetings that hopefully people can sign up, and we can try to cover with a little more regularity than we have in the past. So, okay. Any other committees? Bless you. Public questions, item 12. Anybody?
It's my first time here.
That's okay. Just keep your voice up, and if you could just give us your name and your address, please.
Oh, sure. Clarice Yasuhara, 399 Norton Town Road. And I'm here today as a concerned member of Guilford, whose child will soon be entering the public school in town. Recently, there was an editorial published by a Guilford High School graduate that spoke about bullying that she endured during her time as a student in this very building. The column in the New Haven Herald made the rounds in social media, and the responses to it were alarming. Some examples of bullying happened as far back as the 90s. I am not a native of Guilford, so I can't speak from experience from here. But what these responses imply to me is that bullying is a part of the culture here. And I think it's time to change that and make our schools a safe environment to learn. I can offer you facts about bullying and the danger it poses to the individual, to the family, the community, but I'd rather provide you with resources that can be implemented to help create a positive change right away. For example, there's the Governor's Prevention Partnership here in Connecticut, and they can provide educational programs which includes 7 steps, the elements of effective school climate, which I think is something that appears to be needed here. The first one is the strong administrator buy-in and support, which would be you guys. 2, effective school policy. 3, school climate committee in place to address bullying in the school climate. 4 is assessment. 5 is data-driven decision-making. 6, program practices. And 7 is measuring and evaluating. You can see it all on the Governor's Prevention Partnership website. Other resources include stopbullying.gov and stompoutbullying.org. Another common response from social media is that the victims were blamed and the problem was often swept under the rug. And now that this has brought to light, I hope that we can work on addressing these charges and creating a more welcoming environment for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others?
Hi, Dawn Emmerman, 64 Flag Marsh Road. I just would like to give you some parent feedback on the buses, specifically from A.W. Cox. I realize
some of the bus company folks are here. If you can be specific as to route numbers,
Bus
I'm
number
sure
22.
they're all ears.
Thank you.
Bus number 22. And just for a little bit of a backstory, and I know that it's a new bus company, so I'm willing to work with you guys. But from my experience, my daughter's in 3rd grade. In kindergarten, we had no regular bus driver. Drop-off times were all over the place. In 1st grade, same thing. No regular bus driver, drop-off times all over the place. Last year, we finally had a regular bus driver. My daughter was home at 3:45 every day. It was fantastic. And then this year, no regular bus driver still. We were told Friday that they finally did hire a bus driver, and today he had a medical emergency. I I don't know the details, but it would have been nice to have maybe a phone call that the bus was not arriving until all the elementary schools were done with their routes, and a bus driver could then go pick up our children. They weren't picked up until 4:10. So I apologize, Dr. Freeman, but you were misinformed from whoever you got your information, because my daughter was not dropped off until 4:35. And the bus route, I know that there was a stop on Jefferson that was dropped off at 4:55, which means the bus route was not done until at least 5 o'clock. And this has been every day, every day. We are upset, we are frustrated, we are angry. And again, it seems like it's our bus. It's bus 22. I don't know what is wrong with the route, or I'm not really sure what the problem is, that we can't get a steady driver more than 1 in 4 years. But that really needs to be fixed. Again, I commend the school because they're staying there with those kids. They're keeping them in a bus line for 40 minutes. I don't know how they're doing it, but they are. My daughter's read 2 hundreds of pages books already in that bus line, which is great,
Not great.
but I would really rather her be home playing. I want her home. And I know that you guys said it's only a 5-minute change. My daughter was home at 3:45 last year. First, her bus stop was 3:56 for this year. Listed, not dropped off. Then it was 4 o'clock. Now it says her drop-off time is 4:15. But she's consistently getting home at 4:41, 4:35. We had 4 o'clock last Tuesday when we did have an experienced substitute driver from a previous year who knew the run. So that was the good one. We like that one. Then we had 4:15, 4:20, 4:25, and that one was blamed on traffic. I hate to say, I live a mile and a half from the school. I don't buy traffic. I'm a mile and a half from the school. It should not take over an hour for my daughter to get home past dismissal. And then today, again, like I said, 4:35. I have one suggestion. We see, because we can see down the road, our bus is going down 4 dead ends that are all right next to each other. I find that unnecessary. Unless there's a kindergartner on each one of those dead ends, there's no reason that bus should be going down all those dead ends. I know that it was discussed last year that they were no longer doing that, but they are.
Well, there may be kindergartners, first of all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So unless
second,
there's
have the link for the
kindergartners
web-
that just
that's
all of a
good
sudden,
suggestion.
on
And
all
second-
4 right next to each other, which is ironic, but.
And second of all, when we actually tried to limit the number of routes down dead ends and tried to do more cluster stops, then we got an equivalent number of parents who were upset about that, either emailing or this is a very difficult, it is.
I know. I
So,
just thought you'd like
what I'm
to
going to make a
see.
suggestion is, I did say there's going to be a meeting on Thursday, and if there are problems with specific, I just want to make it clear, the routes that are in place today may not be the routes that are in place next week. Because there may be, for example, a route where half the kids are being driven. So it is going much more quickly than the company anticipated. The computer has to plug in a student at every, or stop, to pick up every student, regardless of whether they use the bus or not. Within a couple of weeks, you're going to find out who's using the bus, who's not using the bus. So one bus may be able to go 10 minutes more quickly. And correct me, gentlemen, if I'm either under or overstating what you all are looking at, but there may be routes that are going much more quickly than anticipated. There may be routes that are going much more slowly. It may be that the way to move a longer route is to move 5 children to the adjoining route that's much shorter. It may be that next week people are going to be on a different bus. Some people, not a lot, but some people. But that's going to be a subject of what they're going to be talking about on Thursday. We get that some of this is exasperating. I would just note that your issues with the driver 2 and 3 years ago are with the old company.
Yes, but I just wanted you to see why I think there's a lot of angry parents, especially for this run, because that is our.
If there are specific runs that are taking much longer, and I'm sure, gentlemen, you're taking this down, if there are specific runs that are much longer than they should be, we will fix it. We're 7 days into the year, and I know it feels like we're 6 months into the year. I get that, but we're listening. We are not going to ignore this. This is important.
Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
mean, and again, gentlemen, correct me if I'm saying anything.
The perplexing thing to me is when that driver called out.
Well, why don't you come on up and actually, there's a microphone right by this table. If you want to just have a seat right there. See how I did that?
Yeah, that was pretty. I'm Henry Moore from Goshen with the bus company. The only perplexing remark that she made that I have to check into is when that bus driver called out, we reassigned his route to buses that were already on the road, and I myself drove a bus over to that school, arriving, to my recollection, I'll have to check further, before 4 o'clock. We may not have departed, but the principal said that he was going to notify the parents. He introduced himself to me. Sherry said, would you please call the board? He said, I'll take care of that, and we went off on our merry way. We didn't get too far down the road than the same past driver, or one of the same past drivers that had done that route, took my place and went off and did the route. I can't explain why they might have arrived that late. I have to go check on that. To my recollection, I was talking to that driver earlier than that period of time that she indicates a drop-off, but I'm not disputing that. I just don't.
And communications is one of the things that we're going to clarify. Lori Hahn has been working very hard these last 7 days. We've been working very hard to sort of clarify who contacts whom, when those contacts occur, and how that information gets pushed out. So if today was a miscommunication, just know that that's one of the pieces that we're working on as well.
I apologize. I thought that I did say what my point when I said that I would have liked it would have been notified since they knew the driver wasn't coming in. It would have been nice to know at 3:30.
Right. Understood.
The driver's not there. We are going to get a replacement. It will take some time.
Got it.
Mr. Frivola did send out a
Good.
message.
Thank you. Not the call that says your bus is already running late. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep. Thank you. Understood.
I was already outside.
And
That's
thank you.
fair.
Thank you for clarifying that. We did get it out. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
One of the things that complicates it a little bit is obviously the bus company and the district are, the bus drivers don't work for us, they work for you. And so there is going to have to be kind of a different layers of, but we have the contact with the parents, you have the contact with the drivers. But that's a fair point. If you know that there's going to be a substitute that's going to be late, if you can let, well, you did, let the school know and as soon as possible, and that way parents, if they wish to, make arrangements to try to pick up the children.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I understand it and I embrace it. I just don't know what happened in that particular instance.
All right, well, maybe that's something you guys can talk about.
Well, we can follow up on that. We'll make that part of the, there's a number of things we need to be better at, and we'll add that to the list.
Oh, okay. I would, having been here 10 years ago when we switched bus companies, the last time we switched bus companies, we had the same discussions. It was a different set of people sitting here, but it's not sitting here, but sitting somewhere. It's an issue. Whenever there's a handover with and this is a challenging town to transport in, and we know that. And that middle school bus wave, I don't know how many towns do it the way we do it, where we've got.
Well, we don't want to take that discussion.
But it is a challenge.
We are going to work on it. We are going to work on it, and that notification shouldn't have happened by all our policies and procedures. It should have been made. That's why I have to go back and check.
That's fine. Other questions, comments?
Hello, my name's Nikki Rasmussen, and I live at 311 White Birch Drive. And my son is a freshman at Guilford High School, and he's currently supposed to ride bus 19. Since the beginning of school, he has only made the bus one time, and that was the first day when the bus was understandably late. I have communicated with the school as well as the bus company and spoken to numerous people that were quite gracious and very kind to speak with me about the concerns and the issues that are going on, and I completely understand how complicated this issue is. What I'd like to point out is what you alluded to about communication breakdown. There is a severe communication breakdown. The bus is currently arriving. It's slated to arrive at 6:58. I was told to have my son out there 10 minutes prior, give or take. I put him out 20 minutes early, 30 minutes early, 35 minutes early. The day he was 35 minutes early, the bus drove by him. It was a mistake. I looked past it. I was told and reassured again that he needs to be out 10 minutes prior. I've spoken to numerous people until today when I was told to speak to Sherry, who gave me, more of an explanation, and was told that the bus has to be 20 minutes prior to the scheduled time in order to make the middle school runs. That does not fall within the standards, goals, or guidelines mentioned by Dr. Freeman of not having children at the school for greater than 20 minutes. I would love to say that my son is taking advantage of that by reading hundreds of pages, but unfortunately he's playing on his phone. So I will continue to email, write, and call, but I think there is a communication breakdown between the bus company and what they can do within the schedule and this posted schedule time. I would ask that as these adjustments are continued to be made within the schedule, that updated emails go out to parents, because right now, as of tomorrow, I have no clue what time to put my son to get him outside in order to make this bus. Is it 20 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? I was told it's a seasoned driver, that they have a spotter. One day, there was nobody on the bus. The whole route was missed the day that the bus drove by him. So I appreciate the complexity of the issue and everything that the town is doing to support and embrace this. But I would ask that the communications be improved, and also if somebody can reach out and let me know if this change is permanent, that the bus is going to be 20 minutes prior to the scheduled time. Thank you.
And what route was that?
Bus 19.
19, we have that, yes.
Okay.
That's a consistent route. What you see is what you get until we tinker with it. It's been consistent every day.
Consistently that early?
Yeah, it has been early. Nothing's changed in the last 4 days. So the time, it's coming by at the same time every day now.
Right, prior to 20 minutes, but I kept calling and was told to just put him out 10 minutes, so that's why we
I understand,
consistently
but
missed it.
the published time is an error. And
well, if
that's one of the ones that we're going to fix. We know we need to correct that one.
Yeah, it is something that we're working on.
Okay.
We collected all the actual times. I went a little bit into this at the operations meeting. We are going to transmit all the actual times that the buses are running now, so that the district can either post the actual times that the buses are running or whatever they wish to do with the data. But that runs sorted out. The way it runs is the way it's going to run until we tweak it or modify it some way. So to answer your question directly, what you see is what it does. It's coming through consistently at a certain time. I understand the correlation between the published time, what you're drawing, the comparison to. But the way it's running now is the way it's going to run until we fix it.
Which I'd like to point out is earlier than last year, and we're starting later. So I would hope that it would be a priority to get that bus schedule tweaked to be more towards the original scheduled time.
It is. And yeah, it is absolutely one of the routes that we're looking at, and we know it's one of the ones that needs to be fixed. And I just want to suggest that if there's a number of people who want to comment, I don't think that we need to comment back on every single situation. We know that there are routes that need to be addressed. We are working on those, and we're going to correct them and then republish the times for all of those routes so that the correct times are published. Those are helpful comments, and we're working on it. I just want to be careful that we don't discuss every single person who wants to come up and speak about their route. The answer for everybody is going to be, thank you, we've got that bus number down, and we're going to work on the ones that are problematic.
But if people want to make sure we've got that bus number down,
absolutely.
They should
make
either
sure we have the right numbers.
and obviously, and also are free to email Mr. Bowden or Dr. Freeman.
Right. I just don't want to try to correct everyone here.
No, that's fine.
tonight.
I understand.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Bill Rydell. I've been a driver since 1998. I would like to explain to the board and the bus company and the people what one of the problems is. Problem is, all the time that we had new contracts, it was the same management. That's number one. Number two, the previous company deleted every route. They took every route out of the buses, leaving the board to start from scratch.
Right.
Also, to explain, we had 14 drivers from out of town coming in every day with STA. When we lost the contract, STA, immediately they're short 14. STA one step further. They try to rape, in plain English, every driver that they could. They had 3 that they sent to Maine. They have 5 that they sent to Adam Killingworth. They sent 2 to Groton. They're getting a full tank of gas. They got a healthy pay raise. Anything they could do to undermine this company. Now, we started with 22 new people. You have to understand, some of these people never drove in their life. It's hard on them. I think everybody has to give both the board and the company at least another week to try and straighten the problems out. It's accumulation of a lot of circumstances. And like I say, it's, you know, you got shafted, they got shafted. Excuse the language. And, you know, I want people to understand, when you have 22 new drivers,
it's not an ideal.
It's chaos.
Right.
That's all I'd like to say. I'm defending both of you.
All right. Well, appreciate that. And we really get it in that we're going to try to work very closely with specialty to try to make sure that this is run smoothly. We're not happy that kids are on a bus for, you know, whatever the length of time is, or they're being dropped off at the high school late or early, or being picked up at the elementary schools late. We know that. That's not what we're interested in having happen. But it is going to, we have never, since I've been on the board, we've never started at this level of lack of data from the prior contract. And it's too bad, but that's the way it is. And so we're going to try to get it fixed as quickly as we can get it fixed. But other questions, other comments?
My name is Kathy Haskell. I live at 189 Little Meadow Road, and I would like to say thank you because I still have the same bus driver, and we love her. Hasn't been ideal, but we're trying to work with it, trying to take a village and take turns, starting mornings, et cetera, et cether. Still looking to work out the kinks because he doesn't get to school on time. Misses the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm hoping that will work out. One of the things I am concerned about, because he's a student at Guilford Lakes, was the air conditioning situation. And while the weather is definitely leveling out and the air conditioning is seemingly working right now, it sounds like the situation is not ideal to have to wait till another summer to kind of fix that situation, because we still have heat now and we'll have heat come June next year. And it was excruciatingly painful in that school, in that 4th grade wing. So I really feel like PTO buying fans and circulating warm air is not an acceptable solution. So I don't know what the solution is, and you guys have some time now, and you definitely have the entire school year to try to come up with a more amenable solution, because that is not acceptable.
This is at Lakes?
This is at Lakes, yep.
Okay. No, Lakes, my understanding is that Lakes, the problem is manageable, or we think it's manageable, and this is not something that's going to take a year to fix. This is something that we can fix much sooner, and we're working on it. I mean, we've got outside contractors in there working on it now.
I have no doubt. The first week, for sure, I was there plenty of times and calling plenty of people, and there were plenty of people circulating around, but changing thermostats when you don't have an actual compressor creating cold air doesn't do a whole lot for it.
Well,
we need to understand that. I understand that people are there and you're doing things. It needs to be more efficient and effective than that in order to have an effective learning environment.
Right.
So that notwithstanding, one of the other things I would also like to ask about with your red umbrella situation would be how exactly are teachers who are educated to teach going to assess anxiety and those sort of situations? Because although we have social workers that are definitely there, but certainly overworked, I think, it's a little bit concerning on how they're going to determine what's going to be an acceptable level of productive stress.
So classroom teachers are not expected to be clinicians. In fact, if you look at our staffing ratios, when you look at positions like school psychologists and school social workers, we actually have some of the best ratios of those positions to students around. We do have a significant number of professionals. Classroom teachers aren't expected to be experts or clinicians in those areas, but classroom teachers are expected to know their kids and to know when something is different, and to understand that every individual experiences being pushed, being challenged differently. And so while we absolutely don't expect them to get involved when a student is going into crisis or is becoming clinical, we have experts to help in those situations. But we expect every teacher to be able to differentiate instruction and to realize that you can expect something different of me in this situation as the classroom teacher than you can expect from Dr. Keene in this situation, because I know both of you and I know your strengths and weaknesses. So please don't think that we are expecting teachers to be clinicians. But in the same way that we expect regular classroom teachers to work with students who may have special educational needs or students who excel in a particular area and to make accommodations, they have to know their kids and be able to see that I don't look the same today as I do on other days, and to think about what that means and to think about, am I comfortable and am I being challenged? You're talking about designing tasks that engage every kid. We're not talking about delivering therapy or counseling in the classroom. That's absolutely not what we're discussing.
Okay.
Bless you.
And one of the other things I kind of wanted, and I'm sorry, I'm commandeering, if somebody needs to come up, just let me know, is maybe visiting, and it's going to be visited more, I know, next month based on some of the social media posts and some of the information that has been disseminated, possibly since we've had some of these later bus runs and some of the other issues with busing, that we could revisit the whole recess initiative and talk about maybe having more physical time, especially for these younger students, because they really are spending a whole lot of time doing these academic tasks and not going to be, quite frankly, if they're getting off a bus at 4:30, having after-school time to be outside and playing. So a 20-minute or 25-minute or whatever you want to split hairs with between transitions and whatnot for recess is just not adequate time. And the evidence is there, and we can go and do a work group or a task group or whatever you want to call it, but the research is there for having these brain breaks and having movement breaks and having physical activity, allowing them to sit and actually have more functional, productive time learning. And so it's less stress on the teachers, it's less stress on the kids. It certainly is a little disruptive with regard to the rhythm of a teacher, but when we're talking about elementary school students, I don't know how much of a rhythm you're going to get because their attention spans are only so long. So as a physical therapist, I really feel like that movement is necessary. I applaud that they're making adaptive seating and the different classroom changes. I think that's great. I just don't think it's enough. So maybe trying to marry some of these issues and these concerns and considerations with regard to the changes in busing and later start times and these later times leaving the schools, we can actually do something that's going to be collectively healthy for these younger people.
It's actually something we've already talked about as a board and was going to be one issue that we were going to be evaluating during this year.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Others, please.
Can I ask a question?
It's public questions. That's.
Hi, I'm Barbara Hargraves, and I live at 284 Landon's Way. I think this is really more directed at the bus company. I know that the routes have been getting better, and I'm wondering if, I know that there's a large amount of parents that drop off at the high school. And I've heard, I don't have a high schooler, that the traffic coming in and out of the high school is significant in the morning, and I would assume in the afternoon. Is that impacting the start of the bus runs at the middle school and the elementary school?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, so we have traffic that's an issue in a number of our settings. Traffic on New England Road all the way down to Long Hill is a concern, and traffic right out in front of Adams is a concern. And so, yes, we've got parents who are dropping off at the high school. You've got parents who are dropping off and students who are driving and arriving themselves. And then you have buses that come into the midst of that. It certainly does impact timing.
I can answer this a little bit too, because I drop my kids off. It gives me 5 minutes at least when I can make them put their phone away and I might have a chance to talk to them. But the problem at the high school is that is that everybody gets there too late. There's a huge wave between about 7:25 and 7:35. I think it's 7:20, right? I mean, there's other high school kids.
There's a 10 or 15-minute crunch time.
Yeah, and if there is a bus sitting on Long Hill trying to get to the high school at 7:25, it is going to take 5 or 10 minutes to get there, right? I mean, it's something along those lines, and that's going to eat into the next run. I mean, when we are driving up to the high school, we're going up school side, and the kids are being, waiting for the Adams bus to pick, or the Adams Baldwin bus to pick them up.
And we knew this was a design feature, but by trying to have those high school buses drop off later, closer to the bell, we have put the buses more into the middle of that traffic than when they were dropping off 30 or 35 minutes. So it's part of what's exacerbating the concerns that we heard about earlier, and it's one of the issues that we're still wrestling with.
The student government at the high school is actually talking about trying to figure out ways to work around some of the traffic issues, but I think it's going to revolve around that they need to get there a little earlier.
I was just going to suggest that. I was wondering if and I don't know who this is directed at, maybe it's the administration at the high school. I know that at Adams, we were told if you're dropping kids off, you can't drop off until this time. And I'm just wondering if you could implement some sort of hey, if you're dropping your kids off, you need to drop off by a certain time. I realize that that's not an easy thing to police. But and maybe that's not the right word.
It is the right word. It's very difficult to enforce.
To enforce, yeah,
like
to enforce. But if it was a strongly suggested memo, I mean, you might have a lot of parents that are like, you know what, I will drop you off earlier, or whatever it is, or you can take the bus, or what have you. I realize that it's not going to eliminate the traffic coming in from students that are driving. I mean, I see kids on my street that are leaving at 7:15. And they're driving here, and I get that, and that's great because they're getting more sleep, and that's what they should be doing. But I kind of wonder if you could control the amount of parents coming in so that it doesn't affect the bus runs. I mean, it would have to be a community effort, but if the buses could get in and out quicker, it would help the other runs. It was just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a good suggestion. Yeah. I think the best we can say would be we could encourage it.
Yeah.
And because I don't think people want to sit in traffic, right? And so if they could get there by 7:20, either the kids that are driving or the parents that are dropping off, there's no traffic.
And then even
the students are talking about it is great.
Even in
the students are talking about it.
Yeah, and even in the afternoon, if parents are picking up, I don't know what the afternoon looks like. I just know that.
Same thing going in the other direction.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. But I mean, like, maybe if that could be considered.
I know the administration's working on it.
Logistically, I'm sure it's not easy, but.
It is not.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Salato, 51 Kendall Court. I'm actually just reading this for someone. Danielle Morgan just left and asked me to read it. Christine, I think you have a copy of this.
Yep, thank you.
So I'm just going to read it, but I do know what it's about. It's Dear BOE members, we are parents of children in the Guilford school systems. We are reaching out to you as a group of community-based parent academics, psychiatric clinicians, and concerned members of the community invested in the ongoing discussions around the school system's role in optimizing our children's mental health. Recently, a community member identified bullying and the system's response to that experience as a powerfully negative aspect of her journey through GHS. This incident has shown light on an epidemic common phenomenon among the youth of our society. While we are not invested in focusing on this incident, we are excited to take the opportunity to partner with the BOE and the administration to offer our expertise and support with the goals of developing strategies, seeking consults, and creating programming to support the school system we have come to respect and entrust to grow and educate our children in safe and loving ways. Research offers facts and consequences of bullying include the following. At least 1 in 5 high school students have been bullied, harassed, or victimized by their peers. More than 13 million kids are bullied in the United States each year. For the majority of teens today, bullying is more prevalent and more damaging than racism, HIV/AIDS, or the pressure to have sex. According to the Office of Adolescent Health, bullying is as significant a problem as the pressure to use drugs or alcohol. Bullying, whether physical, social, verbal, or cyber, has long been linked to issues with self-worth. Victims of bullying, both boys and girls, have proven to be at elevated risk of loneliness, depression, and suicide. A Science Daily article revealed that adolescent girls are highly likely to engage in substance use as a result of bullying-related depression. Some are using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism to ease their anxieties and escape from reality. Others are initiating drug or alcohol use as a means to enhance their social image. Bullying can come in many forms. While adolescent boys are typically bullied through physical violence, teenage girls are more likely to be harassed indirectly via gossip, being excluded from social circles, or cyberbullied through social media or the internet. The truth is, bullying is growing alongside technology in the lives of adolescents. The increased access to social media, forums, online chats, cell phones, and tablets is enabling teens to make fun of one another. The anonymity of the internet or text message allows them to hide behind a screen as they post something mean about one of their classmates. The problem is, these cyberbullies do not know what is happening on the other end of the line. As we welcome Bullying Prevention Month this October, please consider joining forces with us in seeking more comprehensive programming for the long-term mental health of our children. We are fortunate to embrace all that this great Guilford community has to offer our families and children: a safe community, challenging academics, high-quality sports, top-notch music programming, and teacher staff who care and are invested in the growth of our children. We welcome partnership around this complicated and timely issue. So that's from Danielle Morgan and Arena Esterlis. And again, Christine, I think you have their email information. There's a few parents that they're kind of getting together with. And the idea, again, is to not focus on what happened and what that article was about, because we don't know, we weren't there, we don't know the steps were taken, but these guys want to just take the initiative to work with all of you in figuring out kind of where we can go from here, and they have a lot of expertise and professionalism behind them that they think can be of huge advantage to all of you. So, okay, thank you.
I just suggest that we pass that along to Dr. Freeman, and then as we are exploring any changes, we can take advantage of that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Others? Okay, going once. Not.
Good evening, Kate Sheriff, 2804 Boston Post Road. It's been a long night, so I really had no intentions of speaking, and I don't want to rehash what you've already heard, especially with the bus routes. I would like to say, though, so I have a kindergartner at Cox School. I will say that last week, the communications with Ms. Hahn sending out was very appreciative. Our principal at Cox has taken over, so we've been very informed. I'm not thrilled that my kindergartner, we are the second to last stop. So we've been consistent with 4:55, 5:18. I'm not thrilled, but I will be honest with you. I've given my son the option to take the bus. Thank you to the bus and the bus drivers, even though there has been a rotation. They make all the difference. In the mornings, he gets a smile, he gets a good morning. He chooses to take the bus. He comes home, he's flushed, he's tired, he's sweaty, but he gets on the bus every single morning. So I'm very appreciative of that. I think that, and I know there's lots of adjustments and lots of work efforts on everyone's part that's still ongoing, and they most likely will, especially I probably anticipate at least another month, to be realistic. If the communication lines just stay open, I'm appreciative of that. I will be honest, I think my little bit of patience is just sharing the accuracy of the information that was provided tonight in this forum to the audience, indicating that the routes were completely finished by 4:30. That's where, as a parent, knowing that your child, I just would like that to be a little bit more opened and that everyone is aware that that's not the case, but that those efforts are underway. So the communication, a lot of the folks brought up some good points. Keep that communication going, but I would like to extend my thanks to the bus drivers. And like I said, I'm hoping for that adjustment and that will be brought in a little bit and that we will be notified if those bus route or the changes of the times, and that we will keep up to date, because those I have not seen. I've checked every once in a while. I will be honest, I've tried, Mr. Dorwin has been very responsive to the emails that I've sent, on the weekends like everyone else. The one thing that I was not able to get is what that bus route looked like. So I'll admit, I'm that parent. I have followed the bus. The routes have been crazy. They've reined them in. They've gotten better. But I would like to see what that overall picture, and maybe hope that within the end of the month, we'll have a much better picture and what's realistic.
Yeah, so the software that we were using last year, you actually could access the entire bus route, and you could see, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. I mean, and then, like, my route is a dead end, a very long dead end, but a dead end, and the schedule had my kids being picked up as the bus was going down the road, turn around, come back up the road 20 minutes later, and drive past where, I mean, it's ridiculous. But that's the way the software said to do it. Now, if you knew what the whole bus route was, you might be able to say, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Dorwin. But the current software doesn't allow us to do that, or at least it hasn't in the current configuration.
Or if it does, it hasn't been
We can
accessible
get the
to
routes out.
anyone.
I think you
Can you?
can.
It's a new learning curve for us.
Yeah, okay.
We're concentrating on what we do know within the software packages, but at some point, we can, I think we can get them out.
Can I ask another question, as long as you're here? Once upon a time when we were dealing with STA, they said that there's possibility of getting an app where you could track where the buses are. Can that be done?
Yeah, your buses will have them by, no?
No, Mr. Bloss is talking about
GPS or?
No, he's talking about the student tracking system,
Oh.
so that parents can buy an app and see what time the bus will be to their house.
Yes. Okay, just
Right.
give us your name.
Sorry, Mike Turner from Specialty Transportation. The software that to answer your previous question, the TransFinder software will allow you to do whatever you want with it. It's up to the town to decide whether or not they want to post that.
Okay.
The town does the routes, so if they want to post the entire route, that's up to them. We don't have anything to do with that.
Okay. Well, that's something we can talk about.
In regards to the GPS tracking, we don't supply GPS tracking on our vehicles. We supply the town with GPS sign-in, so they can look up to see if a parent calls up and says the bus never came to my bus stop this morning, they can look up and see if the bus actually went to the stop and what time the bus was there. There's a little bit of delay on that because they're already installed in the bus and the Zonar manufacturer needs the VIN numbers to match the unit numbers. But that should be by the end of this week or early next week, the latest that will be active. We don't give out, we as a company don't give out information for parents to look into that because there's a lot of liability.
Just security issues?
Yeah, security
Yeah.
issues
Okay.
with kids. You don't know if it's a parent. You don't really want somebody to say, oh, I saw bus 5 with somebody on it. I'm going to go find
no,
out
that's
when
fair.
they're going to be at this spot at this time. So.
Okay.
That was some of the issues that we were worried about when we used to post the entire route. Because
Right.
it would
There
give
are-
anyone who went on the website an opportunity to see where every.
Yeah, but anybody could follow a bus anyway, but,
Well, but you
whatever.
know.
But we do have to
We
take,
did talk about
we have to take a break because we're out of tape or video or whatever.
Good, so
Whatever.
I can get video? I just got recorded.
It's some kind of recording.
You're going to be on local TV.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that, because that's what I was going to finish up, because I know that was just introduced to some of the
Yeah.
other towns across the state
Right.
this year, so thank you.
What bus number?
22 as well.
Yes.
What bus number is your son?
It's 22.
Oh, it's the same. Okay.
Yep.